The wind cut through the concrete levels of the parking structure like a blade, carrying with it the distant echo of sirens and the low hum of the city that never really slept. It was past midnight, the kind of hour where Chicago felt colder than it should, emptier than it was. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting uneven shadows across oil-stained pavement and rows of half-forgotten cars. Emily Carter stepped out from the stairwell, pulling her thin jacket tighter around her frame as the chill immediately found its way through the fabric. Her shoulders ached from the shift she had just finished, a double that had stretched into something longer than she'd agreed to. The smell of antiseptic still clung faintly to her, mixed with the stale exhaustion that never quite left anymore. She didn't move toward her car right away. Instead, she stopped near the edge of the structure, where the concrete barrier overlooked the dimly lit street below. For a moment, she just stood there, staring out at the blurred glow of streetlights reflecting off wet pavement. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached into her pocket and pulled out her phone. She hesitated before dialing. Then she pressed it anyway. The call connected after 2 rings. "Yeah," a tired voice answered on the other end. Emily swallowed, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Hey, it's me." There was a pause. Papers rustled faintly. "Emily, it's late." "I know," she said quietly. I needed to check in about the rent." Another pause, longer this time. "You're already 2 weeks behind," the voice replied, flat and indifferent. "I told you I can't keep extending it." Her fingers tightened around the phone. She closed her eyes briefly, leaning her forehead against the cold concrete pillar beside her. "I get paid Friday," she said. "I can cover part of it then. Just give me a few more days." "You said that last week." "I know." Her voice dipped, still controlled, still careful. "I'm not asking for a month, just a few days." The wind picked up, whipping loose strands of her hair across her face. She didn't brush them away. "I've got other tenants waiting," the voice continued. "People who can pay on time. I can't run a charity here." Emily exhaled slowly, the breath shaking despite her effort to keep it steady. "I'm not asking for charity." "Then come up with the money." Silence stretched between them. Her gaze dropped to the cracked concrete at her feet. For a second, it looked like she might say something else, something sharper, something desperate. But she didn't. Instead, her voice softened. "There's just a few things I'm trying to catch up on," she said. "My son's medication got more expensive this month. His inhaler alone is—" "That's not my problem," the voice cut in. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't raise her voice. "I know," she said again. Another pause. "Friday," the voice said finally. "That's it. If I don't have the full amount by Friday morning, I'm changing the locks." The line went dead. Emily lowered the phone slowly, staring at the blank screen. For a moment, she just stood there, unmoving, as if her body hadn't caught up with the reality of the conversation. Then she inhaled, sharp and quiet, like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. Her hand came up to her face, pressing against her eyes, not wiping tears, just holding them back. She refused to let them fall. Not here. Not like this. She leaned forward slightly, resting both hands on the cold concrete ledge, her head bowed. She whispered under her breath, barely audible over the wind. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this alone. The words slipped out before she could stop them. They weren't loud. They weren't dramatic. But they carried. A few rows back, partially hidden between two black SUVs, a man stood in the shadows, completely still. He hadn't come to the structure for her. He wasn't supposed to be here for anything personal at all. Adrian Volkov stood with one hand tucked into the pocket of his tailored coat. His posture relaxed in a way that suggested control rather than ease. The dim light caught the sharp angles of his face, the calm, unreadable expression that rarely shifted for anyone. He had arrived minutes earlier, stepping out of the elevator that led directly from the hospital's private access level. A routine visit. A matter that should have taken less than 10 minutes. It had already taken longer. Because he hadn't left. Because he had heard her. He watched her now, without moving, his gaze steady, focused. There was nothing remarkable about her at first glance. A tired woman, late 20s, cheap jacket, worn shoes. Another face in a city full of people trying to survive. But she hadn't reacted the way most did. She didn't shout, didn't beg, didn't break down into hysterics or anger. She negotiated, then accepted, then absorbed it. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly, not in suspicion, but in interest. She wasn't weak. She was controlled. Even now, as her shoulders dipped slightly under the weight of what she was carrying, she didn't collapse into it. She held it in place, like something she had learned to live with. That was different. Most people cracked under less. She straightened after a moment, drawing in a slow breath as if physically forcing herself back together. Her hand dropped from her face, and she wiped at her cheek quickly, not lingering, not acknowledging it. Then she reached into her pocket again. Another call. This one connected faster. Hey, she said, softer this time. A small voice answered on the other end, sleepy and fragile. Mom. Emily's expression shifted instantly. The tension in her face didn't disappear, but it changed, softened at the edges. Hey, baby, she murmured. Did I wake you? No, I couldn't sleep. Her grip on the phone tightened again, but gently now. Did you use your inhaler? A small pause. Yeah. You sure? Yeah. She exhaled slowly, relief mixing with exhaustion. I'll be home soon, okay? She said. Try to get some rest. Okay. I love you. Love you too. The call ended. Emily lowered the phone again, staring at it for a second before slipping it back into her pocket. Then she turned. She didn't look around, didn't check if anyone had heard her, didn't search for witnesses. She simply walked toward a faded sedan parked near the far end of the structure. Her steps were steady, even if her body looked like it wanted to give out beneath her. Within seconds, she was gone. The sound of her engine starting echoed briefly through the empty levels before fading into the city beyond. Silence settled back in. Adrian didn't move for a few seconds after she disappeared.
Then, slowly, he shifted his gaze to the spot where she had been standing. The cold air didn't seem to touch him. Nothing about him suggested hesitation. But something had changed. Not visible, not obvious. Just a shift. Behind him, footsteps approached, measured, controlled. A man stopped a few feet away, waiting. Adrian didn't turn immediately. When he finally did, his expression had already returned to its usual calm, unreadable state. "Get me everything on her," he said, his voice low, even. The man didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. Adrian glanced once more toward the exit where her car had disappeared. Find out who she is. By the time the sun rose over Chicago, Adrian already had everything. Not guesses, not assumptions. Facts. The file lay open across his desk, in the quiet stillness of his penthouse study, its contents neatly organized, precise, and disturbingly complete. A life reduced to paper, numbers, patterns. Emily Carter, 29, registered nurse, works at a mid-tier hospital on the south side. Double shifts, sometimes triple when they let her. No disciplinary record, no complaints, no unusual activity. He flipped the page. Debt. Student loans, medical bills, late rent, credit cards stretched thin, but not maxed. She wasn't reckless, just overwhelmed. Another page. Noah Carter, age 5. Diagnosis: chronic asthma. Prescription history consistent. Medication refills delayed twice in the past 6 months. Insurance coverage minimal. Risk level moderate to high if untreated. Adrian's jaw tightened slightly, though his expression didn't change. Another page. No partner. No active family support in the city. Parents deceased. No siblings. No financial backup. Nothing. No hidden connections. No criminal ties. No history that explained the way she held herself under pressure. Clean. Too clean. He leaned back slowly in his chair, fingertips resting lightly against the edge of the folder. People like her usually broke. Quietly. Gradually. But they broke. She hadn't. That interested him more than anything in the file. A soft knock came at the door. "It's done," his right-hand man said as he stepped inside. Adrian didn't look up immediately. "Already?" A nod. Rent's cleared. Paid 6 months in advance. And the medication? Handled. Pharmacy accounts zeroed out. Refills automated. Adrian finally closed the file. And her job? A slight pause. That took some conversation. But it's done. She's being moved to a higher-paying shift rotation, starting next week. Less hours, better pay. Adrian stood, walking toward the window that overlooked the city below.
From this height, everything looked smaller, simpler, controlled. "Good," he said. "That should have been the end of it." It wasn't. Emily noticed something was wrong the second she stepped into her apartment building. The hallway lights were still flickering. The paint was still peeling. Nothing looked different. But something felt off. She walked to her door, keys already in her hand, when she saw the notice. Not taped. Not threatening. Gone. The eviction notice that had been there the night before was gone. Her stomach tightened. Slowly, she unlocked the door and stepped inside. Everything looked the same. Noah's small backpack by the couch, the faint hum of the old refrigerator, the same worn furniture that had seen better days. She set her keys down carefully, her mind already running through possibilities. Mistake. No. Landlords didn't make those kinds of mistakes. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. She hesitated, and then answered. "Hello." "Miss Carter?" a professional voice said. "This is Greenview Property Management. We're calling to confirm your account has been updated." "Updated?" she repeated. "Yes. Your outstanding balance has been cleared, and your lease is now in good standing." Her grip tightened around the phone. Cleared by who? A pause. "I'm afraid that information isn't available to us." Of course it wasn't. And the call ended, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than before. Her eyes moved slowly across the apartment. Nothing had changed. But everything had. By noon, it got worse. The pharmacy called. Her balance was 0. Noah's inhaler? Covered. Future prescriptions? Pre-approved. No paperwork. No explanation. By evening, her supervisor called. Promotion. Better hours. Higher pay. Effective immediately. Emily stood in the middle of her apartment, her phone still in her hand, her breathing shallow. Not from panic, but from something sharper. Understanding. This wasn't luck. This wasn't coincidence. This was control. Her jaw tightened. There was only one person who could do this. The restaurant was quiet for its location. Too quiet. Glass walls, soft lighting. The kind of place that didn't advertise itself because it didn't need to. Emily didn't belong here. But she walked in anyway. No hesitation. No second thoughts. The host tried to stop her. "Ma'am, do you have a reservation?" "I'm not here to eat." Her voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. Something in her tone made him step aside. She moved through the space with purpose, eyes scanning until they landed on him. Adrian sat at a corner table, alone. Untouched drink, perfect posture.
A kind of presence that didn't demand attention. It took it. He didn't look surprised when she approached. Of course he didn't. She stopped at the edge of the table, staring down at him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, "You think throwing money at my life gives you control?" Her voice was steady, not loud, but sharp enough to cut.
Adrian looked up at her slowly, his expression calm, unreadable. "Control," he repeated, as if considering the word. A faint pause. Then, "No. I removed your problems." No apology. No explanation. Just fact. Emily let out a quiet, humorless breath. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." Her eyes flashed. "You don't get to decide what I need. And you don't get to decide what I do with my resources." The words weren't aggressive. They didn't need to be. Everything about him, the way he sat, the way he spoke, carried weight. Power that didn't need volume. Emily stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I didn't ask for your help." "No," Adrian agreed. "You didn't." "Then take it back." A slight shift in his gaze. "Why?" The question caught her for half a second. "Because it's not yours to give." Adrian studied her for a long moment. Most people, standing where she stood, would have softened by now. Accepted. Adjusted. She didn't. That same controlled defiance from the parking structure was still there. Untouched. Interesting. "You're still thinking about this, like it's a transaction," he said, finally. "And you're not," she shot back. "No." A pause. "It's an investment." Her expression hardened. "I'm not something you get to invest in." "No," he said calmly. "You're something I chose not to ignore." Silence stretched between them. Emily shook her head once, sharp and final. "I'm done here." She turned, started walking. Didn't wait for permission. Didn't look back. And for a brief second, Adrian let her. The cold air outside hit her harder this time. Not because of the weather. Because of him. She walked fast, her pulse steady but elevated, her mind already pushing past the encounter. She had her answer. Now she just needed distance. Her car was parked across the street. She stepped off the curb, then stopped. There was a car she didn't recognize. Black, engine running, windows tinted. Parked just far enough away to look casual, but not casual enough. Her instincts sharpened instantly. Someone was watching. Not obvious, not sloppy, but there. She didn't panic, didn't run. She adjusted her path slightly, pretending not to notice, her eyes catching the reflection of the windshield in a nearby store window. The car didn't move, but it didn't need to. That was enough. Her jaw tightened. This wasn't about Adrian anymore. This was something else. Inside the restaurant, Adrian stood by the window, watching the street below. He saw her stop, saw the subtle shift in her movement. He followed her line of sight. The car. His expression didn't change, but something in his posture did. A quiet, dangerous stillness. He didn't need confirmation. He already knew. She's already on someone else's radar, he said under his breath. And just like that, what had started as interest became something else entirely. A problem. And Adrian Volkov didn't ignore problems. He eliminated them. The hallway outside Emily's apartment smelled faintly of bleach and something older, something damp that never quite left the walls. It was late again, later than she wanted. Noah's small hand rested in hers, his breathing soft but slightly uneven, the faint wheeze she'd learned to hear even when no one else could. She unlocked the door quickly, glancing once over her shoulder, out of habit more than fear. Nothing. Just the narrow corridor, flickering light, peeling paint. Still, something didn't sit right. She pushed the door open, guiding Noah inside. "Go on," she said softly. "Get your pajamas on." He nodded, dragging his feet toward the small bedroom. Emily stepped back into the hallway, just for a second, listening. The silence felt wrong, too still. Then, footsteps. Not from the stairs, from the far end of the hallway. Her body tensed instantly. 3 men, moving fast, but not careless, purposeful. One of them reached inside his jacket. Emily didn't wait to confirm anything. "Noah!" she snapped, spinning back inside. The door slammed shut behind her as she twisted the lock, her heart kicking hard against her ribs. "Mom?" Noah's voice came, confused, from the bedroom. "Get down," she said, already moving. The first hit against the door wasn't subtle. It cracked through the frame like a gunshot. Wood splintered. A second impact followed immediately. Emily grabbed Noah, pulling him low, shielding him with her body as her mind raced through options she didn't have. No weapon. No exit. No time. The third strike blew the door inward. The hallway light flooded the apartment as the men stepped inside. One of them grabbed her arm, yanking her up hard enough to throw her balance off. "Move!" he barked. Noah cried out, clinging to her. Emily twisted sharply, trying to pull free, but the grip tightened, bruising already. "Let him go," she snapped, her voice cutting through the chaos. A second man reached for Noah. That's when everything changed. A sharp, suppressed crack split the air. One of the men dropped instantly. No warning, no hesitation, just clean, controlled execution. The others barely had time to react before 2 more shots followed. Precise, deliberate. Another man collapsed. The third spun, reaching for his weapon. Too late. The doorway filled with figures dressed in dark, tailored coats. Movements synchronized, efficient. No shouting, no panic, just control. Emily froze, still holding Noah, her breath coming fast as the last attacker hit the ground. Silence rushed in, heavy and absolute. Then, footsteps, measured, unhurried. Adrian Volkov stepped through the broken doorway like he had been expected. His gaze moved over the scene once, quick, assessing, before settling on her. "You're not hurt," he said. Not a question, a statement. Emily stared at him, the realization hitting all at once. The car, the watching, this. This isn't random, she said, her voice low, shaken, but sharp. This is because of you. Adrian didn't deny it. They weren't mine. That doesn't matter, she snapped, pulling Noah closer. They're here because of you. A slight shift in his expression. Not guilt. Recognition. Possibly, he said. Possibly. The word hit harder than anything else. Before she could respond, one of his men stepped forward. Location's compromised, he said quietly. We need to move. Adrian didn't take his eyes off her. You're coming with me. No, she said immediately. It wasn't fear in her voice. It was refusal. I'm not going anywhere with you. Adrian took a step closer. Not aggressive, but undeniable. You don't have a choice. Her jaw clenched. I always have a choice. Another glance from him, brief, almost curious. Then, not tonight. A pause, and in that pause, something in her shifted. Not surrender, calculation. She looked down at Noah, still pressed against her, his small hands gripping her jacket. Then back at the broken door. The bodies, the blood. No police sirens, no neighbors, no help coming. Just him. Emily exhaled slowly. Fine, she said, but this doesn't change anything. Adrian gave a slight nod. It was enough. The car ride was silent. Not uncomfortable, not calm, just controlled. Emily sat in the back seat, Noah curled against her side, already drifting in and out of sleep from exhaustion and adrenaline. She didn't look at Adrian, but she was aware of him. Every movement, every shift, every word he didn't say. They drove for nearly 20 minutes before the city changed. From tight streets and crowded buildings to space, gates, security. The car slowed as it approached a private entrance, steel barriers sliding open without hesitation. Cameras tracked their movement. Armed men stood watch, not hiding it. This wasn't protection. This was a fortress. The car stopped in a private underground garage. Adrian stepped out first, then waited. Emily didn't move right away. She looked around, memorizing. Entry points, exits, angles. He noticed. Of course he did. Planning something? He asked. Understanding where I am, she replied. A faint flicker of something crossed his expression. Approval. Good, he said. The penthouse didn't look like a place meant for violence. Clean lines, glass walls, warm lighting, luxury, controlled down to the smallest detail. But the security followed them inside, discreet, constant. Emily set Noah down on a couch, brushing his hair back gently as he settled. Then she turned, and the anger came back, full force. You brought this into my life, she snapped, her voice cutting through the calm space. Adrian didn't react immediately. He stood a few feet away, watching her. No, he said finally. I stepped in before it destroyed you. Her laugh was sharp. Destroyed me? I was handling it. Were you? He asked. The question landed harder than it should have. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. You were already exposed, he continued, already vulnerable. Tonight just made it visible. Emily stepped closer. You don't get to rewrite my life like that. And you don't get to ignore reality. Silence fell between them. Heavy. Unresolved. Her chest rose and fell, anger still there, but underneath it, something else had started to settle. Not trust, not acceptance, understanding. She looked around the penthouse again. The guards, the cameras, the distance from everything she knew. You're saying, I can't go back, she said. Yes. And you expect me to just stay here? For now, Adrian replied. Yes. Another pause. Emily nodded once. Slow. Not agreement. Acknowledgement. Then she turned, walking back to Noah, adjusting the blanket around him. Her movements were calm again. Controlled. Not broken. Adrian watched her closely. Most people in her position would have collapsed by now. Panicked. Begged. She didn't. She adapted. Fast. Her eyes moved across the room again. Not in fear, but in assessment. Learning. Adjusting. It wasn't normal. It wasn't survival instinct alone. It was something more. Adrian's gaze narrowed slightly. Interesting. Very interesting. From the glass wall of the penthouse, the city stretched out below them. Lights. Movement. Life continuing like nothing had happened. Emily stood there now, arms crossed, looking out. She didn't speak, didn't ask questions. She just watched. Behind her, Adrian remained still, letting her take it in. Because this wasn't just power. This was something else entirely. War. And whether she liked it or not, she was standing in the middle of it now. The first sign that something was wrong came just after midnight, when one of the security monitors in the penthouse went black. Not a flicker, not a glitch. Gone. Emily noticed it before anyone said a word. She had been sitting on the far end of the sectional sofa, one eye on Noah sleeping beneath a cashmere throw, the other on the silent patterns of movement around her. The guards posted outside the glass hall, the quiet murmur of radios, the low, tightly controlled rhythm of a world that never truly rested. When the monitor cut out, something in the room shifted. Not visibly, but she felt it. One of Adrian's men touched the earpiece at his collar. Another moved to the far wall, already reaching beneath his jacket. No one raised their voice. No one ran. That frightened her more than panic would have. Adrian looked up from where he had been standing near the bar, a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. His face remained calm, but all softness vanished from his posture. Report, he said. Static cracked through the nearest radio. Then a voice, tense and clipped. South stairwell cameras down. We lost feed on service corridor 2. Possible breach. Emily was on her feet before she realized she had moved. Is there another exit? She asked instantly. Adrian's eyes cut to her. The question hung there for half a second. Then he set the glass down without taking his gaze off her. Yes. How many? 2 internal, 1 external. if the lower garage stays clear. She nodded once, already thinking. Then stopped staring at the dead screen and moved Noah now. One of the guards looked at her, startled by the tone. Adrian didn't blink. "Do it," he said. The room came alive, not with chaos, with action. Controlled, fast, precise. One man moved toward Noah. Emily intercepted him first, scooping her son into her arms before anyone else could touch him. Noah stirred against her shoulder, small and warm and confused, but he didn't fully wake. "It's okay," she whispered, more for herself than for him. Adrian crossed to the security wall, pulling up the remaining live feeds. 3 more cameras were down now. Not random. Deliberate. A lock being tested. Then a deeper voice came through the radio. "Garage team is silent." Silence answered that report. The kind of silence that meant everyone in the room understood exactly what it implied. Adrian turned. "Move her to the secondary corridor." Emily adjusted Noah higher on her hip, already following the line of sight toward a hallway she hadn't used yet. 2 guards fell in around them. Adrian stayed behind for 1 second longer, issuing quiet instructions into his radio before stepping after them. They made it 10 yards before the first shot cracked through the glass wall behind them. The sound was deafening in the enclosed space. The impact sent a spiderweb of fractures across the far panel, followed by a second shot and a bloom of shattered glass. Emily didn't scream. She dropped low instantly, turning her body so Noah was shielded between her chest and the wall. "Keep moving," Adrian ordered. One of the guards opened a concealed panel beside the hallway, revealing a narrow, reinforced passage Emily hadn't noticed before. It was hidden in plain sight, built into the architecture itself. Useful. She registered that automatically. Then, another shot. This one closer. The guard in front of them staggered, hit high in the shoulder, but kept moving. Emily's mind sharpened. The building wasn't under attack in one place. It was being squeezed. "Not the garage," she said quickly, looking at Adrian. "If they took out your cameras first, they knew your route options. They'll expect the fastest exit." His gaze landed on her, sharp and immediate. "Go on. The hidden route buys time, but only if it doesn't lead where they think it does. If they wanted us dead, they'd block the obvious escape and herd us to the secure one." One of the men beside them muttered, "How the hell would she know that?" Emily ignored him. Adrian didn't. He held her gaze for 1 beat, reading something there, then nodded once. "We take the north service shaft," he said. The men moved without question. That was the kind of power he carried. Not loud, not forced. Absolute. The corridor turned twice, narrowing into a steel-lined passage lit by low emergency strips. Somewhere behind them, another burst of gunfire rippled through the penthouse. Noah finally woke fully, coughing once, disoriented. "Mom, I've got you," Emily said immediately. "Stay with me, baby." His breathing hitched. Too fast. Panic. The worst thing for him. She stopped at once, setting him down just enough to crouch in front of him. Her hands went to his face, steadying him. "Look at me. No big breaths. Slow ones, just like we practiced." The guards kept moving ahead until Adrian lifted a hand and stopped the entire line. He watched as Emily calmed the child in less than 10 seconds, speaking low, measured, never letting her own fear into her voice. Noah nodded shakily. She reached into her bag, pulled out the inhaler on instinct, checked it, then tucked it into his coat pocket where she could get to it faster. Only then did she stand again. "Go." Adrian looked at her differently after that. Not like a complication. Not like a civilian dragged into something she couldn't understand. Something had shifted. They reached the service shaft just as the emergency lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the corridor. A beat later, red backup strips pulsed on, painting everyone in low crimson light. Behind them, footsteps. Not their people. Too many. Adrian stepped back, drawing his weapon with smooth, practiced ease. "Take Noah and go down one level," he told Emily. She didn't move. "How many are behind us?"
Enough. That doesn't answer the question. A flash of disbelief crossed one of the guards' faces. Adrian's expression didn't change, but something colder entered it. 5, maybe 6. Emily looked at the narrow hallway, then at the maintenance panel built into the wall beside them. "Then don't hold here." Adrian's eyes flicked to the panel. She was already there, shifting Noah behind her as she yanked it open. A web of pipes and control switches filled the cavity. Her hospital work had taught her enough about buildings to recognize the basics fast. "Sprinkler override," she muttered. "Pressure line manual release." The footsteps were closer now. Adrian took position at the mouth of the corridor, weapon raised, waiting. Emily hit the release. A violent hiss exploded through the ceiling. A second later, the corridor behind them erupted in a blinding cascade of water and steam, dropping visibility to almost nothing. The first attacker came through it, half blind. Adrian shot him once, then twice. Clean, center mass, no wasted movement. Another silhouette appeared through the haze. Down. A third. Down. The remaining men hesitated, losing formation in the steam. That was all Adrian needed. He moved forward into the blur like he had been built for moments exactly like this. No frenzy, no shouting, just lethal precision. Each shot deliberate, each step measured. Emily held Noah close and backed toward the stairwell, watching enough to understand one thing clearly. This was not a man who survived by luck. This was a man who ended threats. When Adrian returned, the corridor behind him was silent, except for the relentless hiss of water. One of his guards stared at the fallen bodies, then at Emily. That bought us the angle. She didn't answer. Adrian did. "Yes," he said, still looking at her. "It did." They reached the lower safe floor 20 minutes later. A smaller space, reinforced, windowless, temporary, but secure. For the first time since the attack began, the noise stopped. No radios, no shots, no footsteps. Just the sound of Noah breathing more evenly now as he slept across 2 chairs pushed together. Emily sat beside him, elbows on her knees, staring at the floor. Adrian stood a few feet away, jacket gone, shirt darkened at the shoulder where glass or debris had nicked him. Not enough to matter. Not enough for him to notice. But she noticed. Of course she did. After a long silence, he spoke. "You're not what I thought you were." Emily looked up at him, exhausted, pale, but steady. "No," she said quietly. "I'm probably not." Another silence. Then, from somewhere above them, a final message crackled through the secure radio in Adrian's hand. "It's done." He didn't reply right away. He just clicked the line off. Emily understood what that meant without asking for details. The threat was over. Or at least, this piece of it was. Adrian moved to the steel door and stood there for a moment, one hand resting lightly against the frame. When he turned back, Some of the hard edge in his expression had changed. Not softened, refocused. Emily rose slowly from the chair, careful not to wake Noah. "I didn't ask for this life," she said. The words weren't angry now, just true.
Adrian looked at her for a long moment before answering. "Neither did I," he said. "But now you're in it. No apology, no promise, just truth again. And somehow, that landed harder than comfort would have." Hours later, when dawn finally began to pale the city, they were back upstairs. The damage had already been partially cleared. Broken glass gone. Blood gone. Men replaced. Security rebuilt before the sun had fully risen. Emily stood at the window, one hand resting lightly against the cold glass, looking out over Chicago as the first light touched the skyline. Behind her, the room remained quiet. She knew Adrian was there without turning around. Not because he made sound, because his presence filled the space differently than anyone else's. For a while, neither of them spoke. The city below kept moving, unaware of the war that had passed through the night above it. Emily stared at it, understanding now that nothing in her life was where she had left it. Not anymore. Behind her, Adrian remained still. No touch, no softness, just presence. And in that silence, something unspoken settled between them. Not romance, not safety. Something harder. Respect.